Do you recognize this person? If you do, then chances are that you watch F1 or know a thing or two about motorsports. If you don't know who this is Nicholas Latifi, also known as Gotifi. Just search him up to know more. Anyway, the point is, chances are that you clicked on this video because you like Formula 1 or you like any form of motorsports. And that's great, because this video is exactly for you. I'm someone who loves cars, and that's including motorsports. And another thing I love is anime. So naturally, I'm always searching for animes based on cars or bikes because I love them. And I love watching content based around them. So one thing I've noticed is that there's barely any motorsports anime out there. Animes like Initial D are based around cars and racing, but they're not really based around motorsports, and it's directed towards a fan base that can enjoy it without knowing pretty much anything about cars or racing. And I love Initial D because of that. It's an anime pretty much anyone can pick up, and it has become so popular also thanks to the banger Eurobeat soundtracks. Now, while animes like Initial D and Wangan Midnight has its own set of fans, I wanted something a bit more hardcore. While I say this, I'm not talking about the most boring crap out there that the only nerds can pick up, but something that dives into the technical aspect of racing and actually covering the world of motorsports instead of street racing. Motorsports is weird because it looks way more intimidating to get into compared to watching something based around street racing, because it's just a guy in a car trying to be faster than the other car in a car. Motorsports is pretty much the same thing, but it's legal, safer, and way more expensive. So in my pursuit of trying to find an anime based around Formula 1 or something remotely close, I stumbled upon Capeta. Capeta is probably the only anime right now that's based on F1 or any motorsports. That being said, this anime doesn't really show F1 from the get-go, and it's the journey of a young boy who climbs the difficult ladder towards reaching the pinnacle of motorsports. Taira Capeta was only 10 years old when he fell in love with karts. He actually didn't have any idea what a kart was before, but he always loved cars though, especially Formula 1 cars. That the only toy he ever owned was a Lego model of an F1 car. And Capeta knew that his dad was working hard, so he thought asking anything more than the basic necessities was a luxury. He also lost his mom at a very young age, and with his dad working night shifts, he was always an obedient kid who didn't want to cause any more problems for his dad. But Capeta's dad always wanted to give him a better and more fun life, but money was always an issue for them. Capeta's dad worked for a paving company, and it's a job that takes you to different places, and one of those places was a karting track. Taira Shige was mesmerized to see the karts go at high speeds, and was even more surprised when he heard that the karts were being piloted by little kids as old as Capeta. Shige instantly knew Capeta would love to sit in the driver's seat of one of those karts, so he directly went to the owner of the track to inquire how much a kart would cost. And if you know anything about karts, they're fucking expensive. And they're extremely expensive for a family that barely gets by, so Shige instantly dropped the idea and went back. But Shige still wanted to put Capeta in the driver's seat, so his next plan was to build a kart of his own from the scrap left from the rental karts at their local track. The owner of the track, even though a little bit hesitant, agreed to it. So Shige got to work with the aim to build a kart that runs for Capeta. Shige worked on the kart after his job every day until he put together a frame that looks like a kart and some old used tires left behind from the racing track. Even though the kart looked like a kart, it was still missing one key component: the engine. Shige wanted to give the kart to Capeta as soon as possible, but he wanted to put an engine in it before presenting it to him. But Capeta and his extremely annoying childhood friend Monami, who I will talk about in a bit, felt a bit suspicious on why his dad was getting extremely late to come home these past few days. Capeta and Monami decides to snoop around Shige's workplace to get some clues, and that's when Capeta sees his very first kart sitting right there with his name engraved on it, but without an engine, of course. Capeta understood why his dad was being secretive, but he just couldn't contain his excitement seeing his own kart. So he took the kart out and started pushing it on an uphill road so the gravity can do its work. That's when a kid named Nobu, who used to be Capeta's bully, also started to push the kart together with Capeta to help him get to the top, because Nobu was also surprised to see something resembling a car. Capeta starts to drive the kart downhill and tries to turn a corner at the bottom. He keeps on doing this again and again until he couldn't make the corner, but he goes off track and slips into the grass. His dad was watching all this from the sidelines, and seeing Capeta's face light up while driving the kart made Shige want to arrange an engine for it somehow. And that's how the story starts to take place before it gets more technical and more leaned into serious racing. Now, I can't really say if everyone will enjoy this, but if you like something like Initial D or Wangan Midnight, then I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy this one too. The next big step for Capeta's karting dream was to get an engine. Kart engines are not cheap, and investing such a huge amount into karting is not a viable solution, especially for a family like the Tairas. So instead of getting a 2-stroke or 4-stroke, Shige requested his boss to lend him an old generator engine so he can get the kart running. The boss was not extremely happy about this request at first, but seeing Capeta's passion made him agree. And with that, the kart has finally become functional. So the very next thing to do was a track day. Capeta, Shige, Monami, and Nobu, the primary characters of the show, all show up to give the kart a run and see Capeta drive. Capeta puts on a race suit and takes the kart out to track, and the very first thing he notices is that the kart doesn't run properly. The frame had some alignment issues and he spins out, but Capeta is someone who does not like excuses. So without retiring from the session, he found a way to keep the kart stable by turning it slightly off center, and he kept on going. Now we're going to see stuff like this happen throughout the show. Capeta almost never complains and keeps on going by trying to make the best of the situation, and that becomes one of his biggest strong points in the career. At the same track was another kid named Minamoto Naomi. Naomi is not an average Joe out there to have fun. He's a serious guy who does karting professionally. His mom was also a racer and now runs a racing organization called Auto House. And oh boy, his mom is a top 5 MILF of all time. I genuinely would watch this anime just for her. Anyway, enough MILF hunting, let's get back to racing. Naomi is supposed to be like a Max Verstappen, a generational talent who has perfected racing right to the core in every way possible. He's extremely fast and has been doing this since he was a baby. And thanks to his mom also being a racer, he also had the right environment to grow up to become the best version of him possible. Capeta met him on his first day on the track and had a little race unexpectedly and found out how fast Naomi was, but Naomi was also surprised to see someone with a generator engine even coming close to his 2-stroke. Naomi was then later called in, and only then did Capeta realize that Naomi wasn't exactly racing but breaking his engine in for the next race. But Naomi wasn't completely breaking in his engine either and was aware of Capeta on track and how fast he was on his shitbox. Capeta decided then and there that Naomi was going to be his eternal rival, and there starts Capeta's obsession of wanting to beat Naomi in a race. But Minamoto Naomi was flying through the karting ranks every year and winning everything there was, so catching up to Naomi isn't that easy. But Capeta isn't slow either. The biggest thing holding back Capeta isn't talent, but money. And just like in real life, they need a lot of money to pursue any sort of racing, and that's one aspect they show that I appreciate a lot. Racing isn't cheap. It's the most expensive sport there is, and getting into it even at the junior level requires your parents to be rich. So Capeta's racing career is not off to a great start. Having a shitbox kart like Capeta would call a Red Bull RB19 and that it drives like one doesn't mean he can keep doing it throughout his career. The generator engine kart was just something that his dad put in so his kart moves. But all that changes when my favorite MILF, who's also the manager of Auto House Racing, wants Capeta to join them and race for them after seeing us go on track. She was so surprised that she thought Capeta was racing in a junior class and was shocked to hear that it was first time driving a go-kart. But Capeta was a dumb little kid, so he refused her offer and said he's making his own team called Team Capeta. Now, this is a really dumb move in real life, but it's an anime, and so some plot armor will cover that. Capeta is divided into 3 parts. The first part is starting off in karts and slowly learning the machine and racing. The second part shows the older and more mature Capeta who's trying to get into the class Naomi is racing in. This is a part where he realizes how important money is in racing, and the third part is him finally getting into Formula Toyota, which is named as Formula Stella here. The anime talks about most of the racing terms like tire grip, oversteer, understeer, slipstreaming, so if you're someone who does not follow racing or want something a bit more entertaining to learn racing concepts from, then Capeta is a good pick for that. But if you're someone who follows racing, these are not going to wow you, but you'll definitely point fingers when you hear a term or name that you know. Now, is there any problems with this show? Yes. There's a big problem, and it's called Monami. Monami is Capeta's childhood friend, and she did support Capeta throughout his journey in various ways, but she's so fucking annoying. Whenever she's on screen, I lose brain cells every time, and it's extremely annoying. But I think that's just a tropey character they had to include for no reason back then, and you'll have to deal with it. Capeta's best friend Nobu, who used to be a bully though, is such a great dude. Capeta and Nobu has a brotherhood bond, and Nobu acts like Capeta's manager right from where he started racing. Nobu's dream is to become the best motorsports manager, and he does a good job at it with his limited knowledge and resources. He goes out of his way to find events and sponsorships, and both Capeta and Nobu takes motorsports very seriously, and they couldn't have made it without each other. Later down the line, they introduce so many characters, but some of these interesting ones are Momotaro, who's an extremely rich kid who does karting, but he's pretty bad at it. But I thought they're gonna do the classic spoiled rich kid trope, but surprisingly, Momotaro is such a nice dude. He's so chill and such a big fan of Capeta, even though he keeps announcing that he's Capeta's eternal rival. Momotaro even lent Capeta his own card when he didn't have his own, and always want to see him succeed. The other guy is Shiba Ryo. After Naomi, Shiba is the closest rival to Capeta. He's also extremely fast, but Capeta is always a bit better than Shiba, even though they might be closely matched. Capeta's story reminds me of Esteban Ocon's story and Lewis Hamilton. Unlike rest of the Formula 1 grid, Esteban Ocon comes from a very poor background to the point his parents had to sell the house and live on road just to fund his karting career. Thankfully though, it all played out beautifully. Lewis Hamilton's dad also had to work multiple jobs, and that's similar to how Shige also has to take up multiple shifts just to cover the basics. Now let's talk about the technical aspects of how the show is, starting with the animation. It's a pretty old anime which aired in 2005, and for its time it looks alright. All the karts and cars are CGI, and it looks pretty similar to the CGI in Initial D, if not better. The tracks are also modeled pretty good. We get to see some tracks like Fuji Speedway and Suzuka, and they all look pretty good for the time. Now there's a big problem, and that is you can't watch this anime unless you have a DVD release, and I don't think there's a legal way you can watch this anime other than that, and that's extremely sad. But you can sail the seas and it is obtainable, so you might need to go through some subreddits to find what you're looking for. Also, being such an old anime, the maximum resolution of this release is 480p, and by today's standards it looks very bad and grainy, but you can try using Anime 4K, which is a way to upscale your anime in real time. I made a video on how to set it up, and I'll drop the link down in the description below. I can't keep talking about this anime for a very long time, but I believe you should watch it instead of watching me ramble about it, because it's an amazing anime, especially if you're interested in more sports. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you later.